Good morning, Hint Healthcare. I am so excited to talk with you, learn from you, and share some of my experiences with you for reasons I hope become clear. But let me start with this, and that is to say, by nature, I've always been contrarian. I've always looked at things an odd way. I've always had a very, what I would call healthy. Some of my mentors, some people with the NFL, do not feel it's so healthy for me to have a healthy disrespect for the status quo ante, for the way things are. Why couldn't we do things better than we're doing them? And if you think about that as the background of a speaker, and you think about what you're doing, I mean, you're in the midst of a revolution in American healthcare, and you are creating that revolution. If that word is too strong, then maybe if it's not revolutionary, it's evolutionary. But if it's evolutionary, it's a radical evolution. And so get busy in the business of radical evolution and being willing to say why and why not. Why are we doing it this way? Now, you're going to see a picture in a few minutes of my beautiful and brilliant wife, Maureen. We raised 3 boys. When those boys were younger, if they were doing something they probably ought not to be doing, we'd look at them and say, "What's that smell?" "I think it's your soul burning in hell." True story. And if I give offense, I apologize. Not too much, but I'm an equal opportunity offender. My point is, when you say why, and you have to say why all day, every day, and people say because we've always done it that way. Just look at them and go, "What's that smell?" Because it's their soul burning in hell. Because the way we're working isn't working. We're going to talk more about that. That's why we have to develop our failure muscles and do it better. I had the great fortune of writing a book recently. There's, I think, some copies at the back. Happy to sign them if you want. But the title is "Leadership is Worthless, but Leading is Priceless." Now that deserves an explanation. Why do I say that leadership is worthless? There's over 60,000 books on Amazon alone with the word leadership in the title. How many of you have read one of those books, at least? Yeah. What did it say? Take your time. Take your time. And my point is, leadership is worthless precisely because it's just words. It's just what you say. And anybody can say anything. That's not going to help you in DPC. Leading is priceless because it's what you do all day, every day. And not just you, but every single person in your practice. That's a theme that we'll come back to several times. So the leading is priceless because it's action. It's what you do. I'm okay with words if they motivate action, but not if they're sterile words themselves. So let's talk about some of the principles. You see this on the slide there, the Roman legionnaire on one end of a 2x6 and the old wizened fellow on the other. And the legionnaire says, "Bro, do you even lift?" And the old guy says, "I do. Sometimes, yes, I do." Well, the old guy is Archimedes. And Archimedes said, as you may know, among many extremely wise things, "Give me a lever long enough and I can move the world." And I'd like to suggest to you some of the levers I've found to be helpful as we move through the world. Most important slide is that one. Shows my email, which is actually, it doesn't. I'm looking at the back there. It doesn't show my email. I now see that. But it's Thom Mayer, MD at Gmail with THOM. So note to self, look at the slides at the back of the room, so I know what I'm looking at. But reach out. If I can help you, I will. I got nothing to sell you, but hopefully I have some things to give to you that might be of some benefit. I don't have any social media presence. You don't have to like me. Something pathetic about that, but that probably shows my age, among other things. But I hope you'll like some of the things that we share with each other and can put them to use in your practices and in your life as well. That, inconceivably, is my beautiful and brilliant wife, Maureen. And I know what you're thinking, particularly the ladies. What was she thinking? What was she thinking? And Maureen was a newborn ICU flight nurse when I met her. I was a pediatric trauma fellow. And when I proposed to her, it was at Alta, Utah. Anybody from Utah knows Alta, top of the lifts, and then you climb up about 500 feet, and there's a run called Gun Sight, and it's called Gun Sight because there's two 30-foot rocks just like that. So we climbed up there, and I said, will you marry me? Graciously, she said yes. I think because she'd never skied that run before and didn't know how to get down. But she also said, yes, Thom, I will marry you, but you have to re-recruit me through the course of our marriage. I don't know what the hell she was talking about, to tell you the truth. But if this woman is going to marry me, I'll figure the re-recruitment thing out. So we'll get back to that in a minute. You're wondering about why is she holding a full-sized Louisville Slugger bat? And Maureen is now an indie film producer. She produced a film called Druid Peak that's about the wolf reintroduction program in Yellowstone National Park. Won numerous awards, including the Louisville International Film Festival, the reward for which was a chance to go through the factory, go to their batting cages. I love that. I played baseball when I was in high school. But you also get this full-size bat. So that says on there, if you could read it, Louisville International Film Festival Grand Jury Prize. And when I fly home this afternoon, when I walk in the door tonight, and I see Maureen holding that bat, I'm in full re-recruitment mode. You know, I know where I stand. Now, the next slide is going to make all of you laugh. Some of you are going to be, snot out the nose, lean over the chair laugh, because that is what an all-American linebacker looked like back when the Earth's crust was cooling. Trust me. The weird thing is, I weigh precisely the same amount now as I did in that picture, but like world hunger, I have a redistribution problem that I'm working on as best I can. So I want you to think about three things and then three more. First of all, leading in times of crisis, that's what you do. You have embraced direct primary care. That's a crisis in American healthcare, and you've stood up and said, I have an answer, or we're developing an answer, hence the need to develop our failure muscles. More on that in a minute. So number one, don't aspire to lead. You're already leading. Everyone. Every single person in this room, every single person in your practice, every single person you encounter in your life. When you think about that, embrace the fact that you are a leader. Not, woe is me, the boss has the answers. And let's remember that the boss, in caps, is a person who thinks that he's the most important person in the room. Whereas the leader knows that her job is to make sure that everyone else in the room feels that they're the most important person in the room. And that is going to be key to your journey. So embrace the fact that you are a leader each day, all day. And then finally, inspire others to lead through the course of your practice. Because it's not just you, it's everyone else who's involved in that practice who are going to create that experience for the patient, for the family, for the caregivers that are involved. Now, three more, and extremely important. I want you to think about leading in a radically different way. That it's not what you say, it's not a list, it's not a group of slides, it's not a book, it's what you do all day, every day. Number two, I want you to act on those thoughts within a week. Because if you don't emerge from this conference Wednesday, as Dr. Boucher was saying, if you don't do something within a week as a result of what you hear, you're just not going to do it. Not because you're bad people, but because you're people, and that's human nature. So put it into action. Leading is priceless because it's the acts that you do. And then finally, innovate. You and your teams have to innovate to recreate American healthcare because it's not working. The way we're working isn't working, which, if you think about it, creates an amazing opportunity for you. If it were working so well, there wouldn't be a need for HINT, there wouldn't be a need for DPC, there wouldn't be a need to come. And I strongly encourage you to think about a couple of things. Number one, hopefully what you have done, and the reason I was so excited to come and share things with you, is you're creating a community of like-minded, passionate people who are in the midst of a radical evolution. And you should take advantage of that by staying in contact with each other. Number two, innovation does not occur at the speed of genius, intelligence, creativity. It occurs at the speed of trust. Because if people don't trust each other, they cannot step outside the lines. If the boss, by the way, most of the time, that we'll talk about the boss in a minute, but when you think about innovation, Samuel Beckett got it just right. He said, ever tried, ever failed. No matter, try again, fail better. Or as Tom Peters, my friends, used to say, fail forward faster. So embracing the fact that there will be failures, not everything will work, embracing the fact that you want your entire team involved in that creative, innovative way of thinking, why couldn't we do it differently? And begin to understand that that's the future. That's the way in which great things are created, always has been and always will be. The old New Yorker cartoon guy says to his cat, never, ever think outside the box. And let me just tell you, in our lives, most of the time when the boss says think outside the box, they don't mean that. They mean think inside my box. Think the way I'm thinking. Ladies and gentlemen, that is no way to run a practice. That is no way to run a business. That is no way to run a life. That's no way to live. Help people understand that you not embrace, but you encourage and you, in fact, insist upon their creativity, upon their trust, upon their ability to say, why couldn't we do it another way, a different way, a way that moves things forward for us, moves the chains, as we'd say in the National Football League. So that, pull up for a second, because if you think about these contrarian ideas that I've presented to you so far, it leads to an inexorable, inevitable conclusion. And that is, the leader you're looking for is you. The answers are not above us. They're within and among us. And we have to get rid of this wistful, worthless word, someday. Someday I'll be a leader. Come on. Embrace the fact that today I am a leader. So when you get up in the morning, you swing your legs around and feet hit the floor, you say to yourself, I am a leader. Today I will lead. The question, of course, is how will I lead? Will I lead with honesty, courage, bravery, tenacity, and integrity, which is the key issue. It's not a question of standing in line to become a leader. So don't want to hear you say someday anymore. I want you to say today. Because when you begin to do that, you understand a fundamental insight. And you talk about contrarian. I gave a speech to 1,000 CEOs of major institutions. And I told them what you see here. Don't ever call someone a future leader. It's toxic, it's demeaning, it's demonic, it's satanic, it's condescending when you say you're a future leader. You know, I'm a leader. Maybe someday you'll be able to shine my shoes and perhaps I'll mentor you and you can become one. You know, give me Zofran, please. Oh my God. Now, if someone says I'm an emerging leader or developing leader or improving leader, listen, I think I'm an improving leader. I'm trying to get better every day. I'm trying to get better. And trust me, my wife would very much like me to get better. She informed me right before I left. We were talking about design flaws. And you know where this is going, don't you? She looked at me and said, I think you're God's design flaw. So I'm still thinking about that one a little bit. My point is, get rid of this term future leader. This makes no sense. And more importantly, it's insulting as it should properly be considered. Maureen and I had 3 boys. And these boys, when they were younger, I used to take them to work. When I went to work every day, I'd drop them at school. And as they got out of the truck, every day I was in town, I said to them precisely the same thing. One more step in the journey of discovering where your deep joy intersects the world's deep needs. I swear I said this to them. They prefer to take the bus, as you would, as your kids would. But my point is, we have to start with our deep joy. Our deep joy. The world's deep needs, they're infinite, they're unfathomable. We can't ever get to the bottom of that well. And I submit to you that that's what you've done. You've decided that this evolution, if it is a radical evolution in healthcare that you're leading, that you're creating, you're innovating around, is your deep joy. Others may not understand that, and we're going to talk about definitions in a minute and how important they are. So my point is, stay true to your deep joy. Stay true to what you set out for, and trust me, you'll always be successful, you'll always be happy. You may be unsettled because failure is an important part of what we do. More on that in a minute. The introduction was very kind in talking about some of the things I've done. I get people all the time who say, hey, Doc, how do I build my resume to get a job like yours as the medical director of the NFL Players Association? So how did I get that job? August 1st, 2001, Corey Stringer, a tackle for the Vikings. You see his picture up there. I know it's graphic, but I use it at the insistence of his widow and children who want Corey remembered. On that day, I got a phone call from Gene Upshaw, then the executive director of the NFL Players Association, and as some of you may know, arguably the best left guard in history, played for the Oakland Raiders. He's in the Hall of Fame. Gene called me up and said, Doc, you got to step up and take this job. Gene did not ask things. He told things. That's the way he worked. And yet, one of the greatest leaders I've ever seen. And my point is, why did he reach out to me? Did he go do a chat GPT search for resumes? That didn't even exist in 2001. He did it because he trusted me. And he trusted me because his youngest and my youngest were best friends. Our families knew each other very well. I had taken care of them on numerous different occasions. You know, you got kids, you need an emergency physician in your Rolodex, that's for sure. So my point is, when people ask me about how do I build my resume, my answer is don't build resumes, build relationships. That's what's going to carry you in this radical evolution that you're in the midst of, is the relationships that you develop and the community that you build with each other. So it is odd. I had the privilege of serving at the Pentagon, numerous other places, but you know, emergency physicians are built differently. You know, there's a plane crash, there's a loud sound, there's gunshots, people run away. That's the sound, evolutionarily based, teleologically based. I was, strangely enough, a theology major as well as a middle linebacker. But the point is, we run towards it. And I would say, you'd say, well, I'm not an emergency physician. Yeah, but you're running towards trouble. Right now, you are running towards trouble. Because you're trying to create something, you're trying to tell people the way we're working isn't working, or it isn't working well enough, it isn't working as well as it could work and needs to work, as your previous speaker eloquently said in his closing remarks about what the future of healthcare should look like. I had the privilege of going to Ukraine and taking care of folks over there. I got back, reporters were there with their microphones and the cameras, and they said, Doc, you know, you're a hero. You went into the midst of a war zone to take care of people. My answer was, I'm no hero. I am no hero. But let me tell you about the 350 heroes that we had the honor of taking care of over there. The Ukrainian people, their bravery, their courage, their tenacity. And that's the heroes that are involved. So park that thought and think about who else you know that has shown bravery, courage, and tenacity. And we'll come back to that. This is a shot 2/3 of the way through the deployment. We were saddling up in the morning, getting ready to go because it was a mobile team. We went where the trouble was, where the patients were. And 3 Su-27 flanker Ukrainian jets went by my window at on the second floor. The sonic boom shattered all the windows in my room and that side of the dorm. And then 4 Russian rockets impacted 4 blocks away. And so as I was running towards that oily smoke coming off the horizon, which happened to be a train station that had been hit that we were at 2 days before taking care of patients, I snapped this photograph. When I got back, Pam Brown with CNN had me on, and she said, you know, Doc, what did you think when you were running towards that smoke, running towards that explosion? And before I could think, I said, I thought I was in the right place. Meaning, that's what I went over there for, was to help. It wasn't a tourism thing. We weren't looking at monuments and churches. We were taking care of folks. What's my point? Are you in the right place? Are you in the right place? Because if in fact your deep joy is to recreate the American healthcare system in a way that works better for the patients as well as for the people who take care of the patients, you're in the right place. I think you're in the right place. You may remember this a couple years ago, June 2nd, we had an event on, we don't talk about players' names, although it's right there on the slide. And as you know, there was a cardiac arrest in the field. 3 emergency physicians, friends of mine, it turns out, from the University of Cincinnati, were within 20 yards where that player went down and had him resuscitated, back in a sinus rhythm within 1 minute and 42 seconds, intubated within 2, and survived and did very well, as you probably know, is now starting for the Buffalo Bills. And people say, wow, that was lucky. Luck had nothing to do with it. It was preparation. Years ago, and I talk about this in the book, we, the NFL Players Association, insisted that the league provide sideline emergency physicians, airway management specialists, concussion specialists, and on and on. It didn't go over well, by the way. But my point is that preparation that you're involved in may be qualitatively different, but it's really the same thing. You're preparing the ground to make sure that you've got the right resources to be able to make direct primary care a reality, and a meaningful reality, I might say. The first panel, when your speaker was talking about going in armed with the data on patient experience, that's preparation. That's like us saying there's got to be emergency physicians on the sideline. It's showing the results of what works and works well. So here's my question. Is that you? Going into work or going home? I mean, it's a legitimate question. Because I submit to you that what my job as a leader is, what your jobs as leaders are to create the circumstances where everyone in your practice feels that way going into work, not just going home from work. That young lady is expressing her what? Deep joy. That deep joy is inherently within all of you and everyone within your practice. So what we need to be able to do is to unleash that jump, to reverse the jump, so that instead of jumping for joy going home, we're jumping for joy going in, knowing that what we're about to do is going to create great, great things. So unfortunately, this is what we see now as we round. The way we're working is not working, just isn't working. Because when you come back from rounds, you sit in your office and you look like the lady on the left, and you see the nurse on the right. And that's why we've got to change things. That's why we've got to fix it. That's why you're here. That's why we hope we can create essentially a series of catalytic reactions, enzymatic reactions, to start this process of think, act, and innovate. Not just in you, but in everyone within your organization. Think about this. I always like to say that limits begin where vision ends. Limits begin where vision ends. May 6, 1954. On that date in history, something happened which had never happened before in the history of mankind, as far as we know. Anybody guess what it was? Can't see you very well with the lights, but somebody raise their hand, say Telstar, Sputnik, Yuri Gagarin, Soviet cosmonaut. One person said the internet was invented. I said, no, Al Gore had just been born then. So, sorry, you get jokes, don't you? You get jokes. My point is, see if this helps. Never happened before in the history of mankind, happened on that day. People said it was impossible, couldn't be done. Now you know what it was it? Roger Bannister ran a 4-minute mile, sub 4-minute mile. He was told it could not be done. He was not only told it could not be done, reliable physicians and scientists said, if you try to do it, you will die on the track. Okay, that's like a death sentence. Maybe we shouldn't be trying to do this, okay? But nonetheless, he did it. And the question is, how did he do it? What was the focus? I'm going to circle back to that in a minute. May 6, 1954 happened for the first time in history, never happened before in the history of mankind. How long was it until 10 people had run a sub 4-minute mile? And the answer is 2 years and 2 days. Once you let the vision expand, the limits disappear. And the reason he was able to do it was, how did they do? Well, I'll tell you this. 1 year and 1 day after May 6, 1954, 3 people ran a sub 4-minute mile in 1 day, in one race. The power that you're creating to pull not only yourselves along, but others along is absolutely critical for you to understand. It's going to make a huge difference. And think about this. I won't, have you raise your hand. How did Roger Bannister, what was Bannister's profession at the time he ran the sub 4-minute mile? He was a medical student at Oxford University. He focused, and his training partners, Chris Brasher and Chris Chataway, focused on something that's important to your practice, strangely enough. Focused on VO2 max. Didn't focus on speed, didn't focus on pacing, focused in the lab on VO2 max with masks on to measure how could they maximize VO2 max. Why does that have something to do with your practices? What is the single most important determinant of all-cause mortality in every decade of life? Anybody know? VO2 max. Your exercise ability, your exercise tolerance, your ability in your direct primary care practice to help every single person understand that becomes very important when you think about what are we really trying to do? What is our deep joy? I had the great pleasure several times of being sort of the warm-up act for Abby Wambach. And trust me, I was the warm-up act. She was the main show. When you talk to Abby, you realize, she understood limits begin where vision ends. She understood, and if you've never heard her commencement speech to Barnard College, do it. Interestingly enough, those who have, she talks about the Wolf Reintroduction Program. She had seen Maureen's movie and was aware of what that meant. But she also talks about the importance of make failure your fuel. Folks, not everything that you try is going to work. And the fact that it works doesn't even mean it's good. Celebrate mediocre successes, No, we're not going to do that. We're going to punish mediocre successes. We're going to celebrate excellent failures. Wild ideas that should have worked, they didn't work, and you sit down and look at it and say, why not? Whether you're talking about Abby and the U.S. Women's National Team, whether you're talking about my players in the National Football League, they spend 3 to 5 times more time in the film room, breaking down film, studying failure than they do in the weight room, on the practice field, or in games themselves. And we need to do the same thing to understand that. So I'm not asking you, I'm imploring you, don't accept failure, embrace failure. Embrace it. Use your failure muscles and create those muscles with the other people within your practice. Every single person in the practice, from the receptionist, whoever's involved in patient care, whether direct or not, it's important to understand that the most powerful fuel you'll ever have is failure and the ability to use it to your benefit over time. And I might just suggest, if you have kids, this is a really important insight, very important insight. So in addition to the leading book, Leading in Times of Crisis, I also wrote a book on burnout. The reason I did is because I thought, if you think about the definition of burnout, you'd read it and it was a whole book long. It was a chapter long. It was 5 paragraphs long. I'm an emergency physician. I have AD. Isn't that a nice blouse? Sorry. Sorry. I don't get too far. You can see why I didn't go into primary care. But my point is, to me, definitions have to drive solutions. The very act of defining something should tell you how to fix it. I would suggest to you the very definition of direct primary care should suggest to you, to your colleagues, but also to your patients, what the solutions are to be able to do it. So in this case, what's burnout? Well, my definition is simple. It's simply the inability to feel your deep joy. The inability to jump for joy going into work, not just going home. So how do you fix it? Well, it's simple. It's a ratio. Simple ratio. Job stressors is the numerator. And on the bottom, most people would call it resilience or resiliency. I don't love that term, and here's why. Emergency physicians have a 62% burnout rate. And yet we're the most resilient physicians in society, not based on my opinion, based on demonstrated research. So if I said to you, well, the reason you're burned out is you're not resilient enough, you'd say, you wouldn't say it, but you'd think it. I'm the problem? You're telling me that I'm the problem? You know, we got this nutso American healthcare system, witness the fact you're all here, to recreate an American healthcare system that works because the way we're working isn't working, and you yet say I'm the problem. So I like the term adaptive capacity, the ability to read and react. I told you I was a linebacker. Strangely enough, I started when I was a freshman, which at that time was very unusual, particularly for a middle linebacker, known as the Mike linebacker, because you're the captain of the defense, number one, and you're calling the signals in terms of what your formation and coverage responsibilities, cover 2, cover 1, cover 3, man, press man, all that stuff. So before the first game, the defensive coordinator, you could tell he was nervous. He'd never started a freshman before. And we're doing the walkthrough, and everybody's watching us. And right in the middle, you know, he stops the whole practice and he goes, "Mayer, my linebackers are agile, mobile, and hostile. What do you think of that?" I said, "Coach, I'm all those things. I'm agile, mobile, hostile, but I'm the Mike. I'm the middle linebacker. I got to read and react. I got to have my head on a swivel. I got to adapt." And he pauses for a second, turns to the team and says, "My linebackers are agile, mobile, hostile, and adaptile." True story. So I'm encouraging you to be adaptile. You're going to have to be adaptile to make this bad boy work, to make failure your fuel, to continue to say, okay, it didn't work. Let's try something else. See how that goes as we move down. Now, you'd say, well, the cardinal symptoms, my friend Christina Maslach wrote this, emotional exhaustion, cynicism, and loss of meaning at work. And that's true, absolutely, but those are the symptoms. We don't treat symptoms, do we? We treat root causes. Direct primary care does not treat symptoms. It treats root causes in American healthcare of the way we're working isn't working. Because if I say, don't be so exhausted. Don't be so cynical. You know, recapture your meaning at work. Good thing there's a back door, because you would assault me if I said that to you, because it's insulting, isn't it? So the point is, focus on how, as you create the new system, how can you lower job stressors to the maximum extent possible, not just, I might suggest, for those who provide the care, but for those who get the care. Don Berwick and I are working on a piece right now on patient burnout. And I don't think there's any question that there's patient burnout in this country. Witness you. Witness direct primary care. Because there's patient burnout, it has created an opportunity for you that is a unique, unfolding, and developing opportunity, at least in my opinion. My wife says my next book should be entitled, "Everyone's Entitled to My Opinion." But we'll think about that, see what the publisher thinks. So fundamentally, there's 3 insights, I think. One, every team member is a leader. Lead yourself, lead your team. There are no unimportant people. You know, I don't get to speak without our friends from the AV service who mic me up, who are making sure that this whole thing goes well. We don't get to come to a meeting like this without the food services people that are taking care of us. And they're not slinging hash, they're nourishing us in a learning environment. So every team member is a leader. Lead yourself, lead your team. Number 2, every team member is a performance athlete, no different than my 2,500 athletes in the National Football League, involved in a cycle of performance, rest, and recovery. Performance, rest, and recovery, over and over. Invest in yourself, invest in your team, because we have been neglecting rest and recovery in American healthcare. As you create this new incredible system called direct primary care, make sure you're investing in your team and their needs as you do that. And the third is the work begins within. The work begins within. And the reason the work begins within is the way we're working isn't working. Concept that we developed called hardwiring flow. Hardwiring flow, what does it mean? Basically, it means stop doing stupid stuff and start doing smart stuff, okay? And you'd say, I don't know if I've ever heard of that before. Folks, that's what you're doing, isn't it? If it weren't for all the stupid stuff in American healthcare, you wouldn't be here. You're starting to do smart stuff. And who knows how to do the smart stuff? It's not the C-suite, it's the we-suite. This goes over very well at CEO conferences in American healthcare. Trust me, I got to have that back door that I can get out. Seriously, who knows what's wrong with the way we're working? The people who do the work in the trenches on a day-to-day basis. And I'm not saying the C-suite isn't important, but they have a different role. That role is to create a milieu, an environment, a set of circumstances, a financing system, a metric system and measurement system to be able to let the people do the work they know how to do, and they know how to design the smart stuff that needs to be done over time. Understand we all work in teams, certainly in an emergency department, but in primary care as well. But there's this huge paradox of teamwork, and that is, I don't care where you practice, you can assure your patients that they're going to be taken care of by a team of experts, smart people. That's the original cast of the show ER. I was a script consultant for ER for 5 years. And I can tell you they were written in the script as incredibly smart people. They were cast as incredibly good-looking people, except the guy in the middle of the back row, Mark Green, who looks like me, with glasses and a little bit more hair. But other than that, they're all really good-looking folks. And so that's a team of experts. But that's not the same thing as an expert team. That's a different set of circumstances. That's a different set of skills. An expert team knows how to embrace failure, to make failure their fuel. They know that limits begin where vision ends. They know that working together across boundaries is how success occurs, and particularly how innovation occurs. Now, I don't know how you feel about this next fella. If you look closely, he looks like an incarcerate. Got holes in the jersey, and I don't know how that came about, but Bill's actually a friend. But he said something very important, and I think it's important for your practices as well, which is that talent sets the floor of a team, but character sets the ceiling of a team. So as you grow your team, as you hire right, and hiring is the most important decision you're going to make, hire right or repent for a very long time and a very painful time. So make sure that you're getting the character that you want. I'm talking about the person who answers the phone, the person who's at the front desk. Your patients are going to see them a lot more and a lot longer and long before they see you. So that makes a huge difference. So make sure that you're hiring for character, not just for talent. One of the most important things I think we can do in healthcare, but it really applies to you, is we have to become the chief storyteller for our patients, what their care looks like. As an emergency physician, kid falls off the monkey bars. What he was doing on the monkey bars, I don't know, but that's another story. And I have to tell the story to the mom, because the dad is somewhere, he's at a bar or something somewhere. I've seen a lot of patients in the emergency department. These have been my observations over time. At any rate, I got to explain, we're going to get an x-ray. Clinically, I think he's got a torus fracture, but let's get a film just to make sure. Even if the film's normal, I'm going to treat him as if he did have a torus fracture, because sometimes they don't show up. I'm telling the story. I'm the chief storyteller, and so should you. You should be the chief storyteller to your patients, and I would just gently say to you, it's not my business, it's your business, I got that. But you're doing something that's either revolutionary or radically evolutionary, if I'm correct. If you don't tell your patients that, they don't know. Unless they know what an incredible journey they've embarked upon by having this new way of doing things, they're not going to know that that's a new way and a better way. So you got to kind of tell them. Now, you've all had this experience where a patient will say, wow, this is so much better than my other doctor or that HMO. Got that, but point out to them why that's occurring. And always remember, as you seek change, particularly when you talk about in the halls of the legislatures, remember what W.H. Auden said in the opening line of Musée des Beaux-Arts. About suffering, they were never wrong, the old masters. How well they understood its human position. So when you talk about change and you need resources or you need legislation to recognize that, don't talk about statistics. Talk about people. Talk about the lady, the guy, the child that you took care of and why they need better resources and changes in the healthcare system and changes in the healthcare reimbursement system to be able to get that accomplished. We all talk about the team, and you see the pictures. I always say, who's the MVP, the doc, the nurse? First of all, think about this. Lab, radiology, and x-ray. And what do we call those services in American healthcare? They are blank services. Ancillary services. I was a theology major and a linebacker. All language has meaning. All behavior has meaning. The language of ancillary derives from the Latin term ancilla. You know what it means? Female, slave. Are you serious? That's what we're calling these people? So let's stop calling them ancillary. Let's call them what they are, essential. We have an essential services team here to help support our practice that's absolutely critical to what we do. But do you make the patient the central part of the team? I don't think there's anybody in American healthcare that's doing a better job at that than you guys are. I really do. And I'm not saying that to be pandering. Apparently the check already cleared, but that was a joke. That was a joke. I am getting paid for this. But I'm enjoying it. That's why the real reason I come. But my point is, I don't think there's anybody better at making that lady feel that she's the center of the team. And you can tweak that, you can improve it maybe if you just walk in and say, ma'am, you've got a great team of people taking care of you here, and I'm proud to be a member of that team, but you are the most important part of this team. What's the most important thing we can do to make this a great office visit for you? What's the biggest concern or fear that you have? Those kinds of details matter, and frankly, I think they matter a lot. And this just reemphasizes what I just said, which is use language to help you. We've got to evolve ourselves, and you're really doing that. You are the we-suite. You're the people doing it. You might say, well, I'm the CMO of this whole practice of direct primary care. And there'll be more and more of those as you consolidate and get bigger. You won't recreate the mistakes that got us here to begin with, I don't think, but understanding that putting the voice of the people who do the work to work in designing or helping us understand what the stupid stuff is and helping us design the smart stuff. And frankly, I don't know what you may have posters in your offices. I don't know. I don't care about the words on the walls. When I go to a healthcare system, they send me the mission, vision, values. Here's all the stuff we got. My answer is, yeah, good. That's good. I'll tell you what your culture is. I'll tell you what your mission, vision, values is after about 5 minutes watching your team work. That's what matters when we look at how we create culture. Obviously, we studied Aristotle and theology, and really, if you think about, we hear about culture. One of the questions, and I will answer it in the Whova, if that's how you pronounce it, app, but one of the questions was about culture. Aristotle said we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence then is not a virtue, it's a habit. It's what we do. So that's us. You're creating a culture every day. When you say today, I am a leader, I will lead, how will I lead? You go out and create person by person, patient by patient, encounter by encounter, a culture of your practice and writ large direct primary care. So when you understand that, it's so liberating. It's not the words on the walls that matter, it's the happenings in the halls that matter and how you do it. And you do it at the end of the day, when tough day, lots of patients, busy, complicated, all that kind of thing, you get in your car and you get ready to turn on the ignition and you say to yourself, tacitly or explicitly, what did I leave in there? You left a legacy every day. What's that legacy? The legacy are the patience that you saw, but also the encounters with the rest of your team that you had when you went through things. So that's a pretty cool way to be able to live life, isn't it? To be able at the end of every day to say, I left a legacy. What was my legacy? It wasn't the words on the walls. It was the happenings in the halls. That is not what let me see if I can go back. Okay, tell you a couple quick stories, and I'll shut this bad boy down. There's a point to this, and it's not just that I love football and I love the intricacies of football, but Hard Rock Stadium, Super Bowl 54, some of you may remember, or you saw in the slide I was about to show, that it was the 49ers and the Chiefs. And the 49ers there's 7 minutes and 13 seconds left. Chiefs are trailing 20-10. Timeout's called. Patrick Mahomes, their quarterback, goes to the sideline, and he's talking to Eric Bieniemy, then the offensive coordinator, and to Andy Reid, Big Red, the coach. And he says, do we have time to run WASP? You say, well, 7 minutes and 13 seconds, you got plenty of time. What do you mean? No, time means he had been slaughtered by the defense, the 49ers defense, playing extremely well that day. And being able to shut him down through three full quarters and half of another to 10 points is a major accomplishment. Time meant, can you give me enough protection, about 5 seconds, to be able to run WASP? And so that's the play they ran. He went to the huddle, and he said, this is the play call, gun, tray right, 2-3 jet chip WASP Y funnel. And you say, the hell is that? You know. Well, if you say you've got a patient with tachydysrhythmia, ventricular tachydysrhythmia, and unstable vital signs, most people don't know what you're talking about. But you do, and your team does, and so does that team, because everything, gun means they're in shotgun formation. Tray right means Travis Kelce, the tight end's on the right side, and there's trips, 3 wide receivers to the left. The central receiver, the slot receiver, is what's called WASP. 2-3 jet chip is a line call. Tells the lineman what to do. And everyone in that huddle not only knows what their job is, but they know what everyone else's job is. The point is, the play was successful. They did get the time. He got hit right as the pass was thrown. And Tyreek Hill, now with the Dolphins, caught it. They went on to win, score on that possession and win the game going away. Okay? Here's my point. Who called that play? Who called the play? Patrick Mahomes. Not the head coach, not the boss, not the offensive coordinator, the other boss, but the player. And here's my point. Can anyone call the play in your practice? Because if they can't, they should. That's the culture that needs to be created by making failure your fuel and being able to say anybody can call a play. You know, the words on the walls, the happenings on the halls are what really matters. Details matter, and I'll just say as you coach, and you're going to have to coach and mentor all the way through, all the things that you do are important. Quickly, and if you're a Falcons fan, I apologize. I'm sorry. This is known as the 26-3 Super Bowl because the Falcons were up 26-3 in the first half, and biggest lead in Super Bowl history, and they lost. Why did they lose? Well, because the Patriots, people forget, you know, they got 11 really great people. There's 11 guys on the other sideline, too, and they're pretty good as well. You've got 11 people on the other sideline in traditional medicine that are starting to listen to you and say, oh, I think there might be something to this. They're going to outstrip us, outrun us, and all that. At any rate, what happened was that game was not won by Tom Brady, good friend, TB12, best quarterback at adapting at halftime. Nope, didn't happen that way. Bill Belichick, the incarcerate-looking guy you saw. Nope, didn't happen that way, although he's a great coach at halftime. Happened because a 67-year-old man named Dom Scarnecchia, the offensive line coach, took his offensive line aside at the halftime, and he said to them basically this: how have I taught you to block? I've taught you to block with thumbs in, fingers up. Do that for me right now, if you would, please. Thumbs in, fingers up. Where's your elbows? So at your side. They have to be at your side. There's no lever, right? What you've been doing in the first half is thumbs down, fingers in. Do that for me. What'd you just do? You created 2 levers long enough to move the world. So what happened in halftime is they made that adjustment, which was just going back to how they'd been coached to begin with. And so my point is, smart people do not equal smart teams. You're going to have to figure it out as you move along, making failure your fuel, innovating at the speed of trust, but creating a team where people feel that they can all jump in. This is the locker room, not far away, of the Denver Broncos. You can easily judge the character of a man by how he treats those who can do nothing for him. You cannot leave the Broncos locker room without seeing that sign, and you can't see it because I took this with my iPhone. You can almost see it. Most of the players touch it on the way out. Reminds them, the trainers, the docs, the field managers, the people who feed us, the people who water us. There are no unimportant people. And I would suggest to you, in what you're doing, that's an essential piece of your practice, is understanding that there are no unimportant people, that everyone is there for a purpose, and everyone has a significant role. When do you think we should do this? How about now? How about now? This is the time. This is the place. You are the people to make this happen. And I would say to you this, a couple quick stories. The summer of 1958, first of all, if you've seen the movie Oppenheimer, it reinforces what you probably already knew, which is in the 40s and 50s, the cutting edge of science was physics. I mean, that was where you wanted to be if you were a really creative and intelligent person. And as I said, the film Oppenheimer helped with that. But in the summer of 58, there was a convention held in Columbia University. All the greatest physicists of the world were there except two: Oppenheimer, tied down with testimony in the Senate, and Einstein, who was at Institute for Advanced Study at Princeton. Guy that you see on the left, Wolfgang Pauli, got up and gave a unified field theory. Unified field theory. And this took Newtonian mechanics, quantum mechanics, special theory of relativity, general theory of relativity, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, tied it all up into one theory. Very ambitious. He sits down, and the guy on the right, Niels Bohr, played by Kenneth Branagh, the great actor Kenneth Branagh in Oppenheimer, the second most revered scientist or physicist to Einstein at the time, got up and said to him, "We all agree that your theory is crazy. The question which divides us, is it crazy enough? Is it crazy enough?" My question to you, ladies and gentlemen, are you crazy enough to disrupt American healthcare, to disrupt the norms that people have said for decades is the way healthcare must be, not should be, but must be? I don't think that was for me. I think it was for you. Yeah. So my point is, if you're not crazy, go get crazy. You're going to need crazy to do what you're undertaking here. And I'll just close with this. Apologies for running over. I ask you, who showed the bravery, the courage, and the tenacity of the Ukrainian people that I took care of? And the answer, of course, is you. Is you. Who would do what you're doing? You are already pretty crazy to begin with. And I just want to tell you how much I admire what you're doing, how much I'm going to follow what you're doing. As I said, if I can help in any way, reach out, and it'd be my honor to help in any way I can. And now, to play on what Phil said earlier, I'm going to ask you to do something that I suspect no speaker has ever asked you to do. And that is, I want you to rise and give yourselves a standing ovation. Good for you. Good for you. Ladies and gentlemen, I love the work you're doing, and I love you for doing the work. Thank you very much.